Okay, we are live. Thank goodness. I had that spinny wheel, but now we're live. And thank goodness, I think the link that I posted this time actually worked, unlike last week. So, problem solved. I know what I did wrong last time. Hopefully, this live and all future lives will go much more smoothly. So, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're watching this from. Thanks for tuning in on a Sunday, or if you are in like Australia, New Zealand territory, it's probably Monday where you are, or possibly very late Sunday night. Welcome. To any of you who are new to me, to my channel, hello. Thanks for being here. I am Amy Berger. I am a low carb and keto oriented nutritionist and writer. And I am the author or co-author of 3 books. My first book is called The Alzheimer's Antidote, and it is about using a low carb or ketogenic diet for cognitive function, for cognitive decline, for Alzheimer's disease, for mild cognitive impairment. My second book was called The Stall Slayer. It's about breaking fat loss stalls on low carb or ketogenic diets. My third and most recent book so far is End Your Carb Confusion, which I co-wrote with Dr. Eric Westman, who's really well known in the keto world. And I am currently working on my 4th book, which is going to be all about thyroid. It's not a keto book at all. It's going to be a thyroid book. So feel free to ask questions about any of that. Keto in general, low carb in general, Alzheimer's disease and cognitive decline, weight, fat loss, weight loss, all things keto. Now, some of you posted questions beforehand, and I put some comments on them, but just for anyone who just tuned in, let's review. Stephanie says, if you use Redmond's real salt, do you need iodine drops? Is that why a lot of keto people use them? So Redmond's real salt is not iodized. So if you like to use Redmond salt or any kind of unrefined, uniodized salt, and if you have determined that you need supplemental iodine, then you would have to take that in addition to the Redmond salt, because Redmond salt is not iodized. And I am not recommending that everybody take iodine, but if you have determined that you need iodine, you're not going to get it from Redmond salt. And I love Redmond salt. I have visited the mine where Redmond gets their salt from. When I was out at an event from the Keto Chow people in Salt Lake City, they were so kind and generous. They had a special event for all the speakers at the mine. So we actually got to go like underground, hard hats and all, into the salt mine. Very cool. So I very much enjoy Redmond salt and their products, but if you're looking for iodine, you will not get it from Redmond salt. Tiffany, I needed more information from Tiffany. Tiffany is asking if my morning blood glucose is 97, and that's milligrams per deciliter for anyone watching outside the US, and my ketones are 0.4, do you think tweaking macros to higher fat, smaller meals will help with fat loss? She's been doing carnivore for 3 years and not getting body composition results. So the comment that I left for Tiffany is, how much weight are you wanting to lose? What is your age, height, and current weight? Are you taking any medications of any kind? It's difficult for me to say anything about fat loss without knowing more about your situation. When people ask, and for anyone watching, if you have a question about stalled or stubborn weight loss or something like that, I'm not a mind reader. Keto is really powerful. Mind reading powers is not one of the things so far that we have identified that keto does for people. So until it gives me magical mind reading properties, I need to know more about what's going on with you in order to give you potentially helpful advice. I don't know if Tiffany's looking to lose 5 pounds or 50 pounds or 150 pounds. Or not lose any weight at all. She said body composition. Maybe she's not actually looking to change her weight on a scale. She's looking to change her physique. So I can't really comment. Carnivore diet for 3 years, that doesn't tell me anything about what you actually eat. I just know what you don't eat primarily. So I would need more information, Tiffany. Stephanie is asking also about dementia, Alzheimer's, medium chain triglycerides, and keto. So, oh, hey, Tina and Roxana. I love seeing friends here. So I mentioned to what is Stephanie, right? Yes, to Stephanie, that I wrote a whole book that will answer probably almost all questions you might have about ketogenic diets and cognitive function and medium chain triglycerides. In my opinion, taking MCT oil or coconut oil by itself is not going to prevent or reduce risk for cognitive decline. If you already have some kind of cognitive issues, I do think they might be helpful because those particular fats are more readily converted into ketones, even in somebody not on a ketogenic diet. And we know that ketones are a very, very good fuel for the struggling brain. In my opinion, everybody knows this is none of what you hear today is medical advice, just my opinion. Probably one of the most important things, if not the most important thing, or things, if we count these as two, you can do to reduce your risk for cognitive decline as you age. And I always say reduce risk. I don't say prevent. I might say potentially prevent. We don't know for certain that you can prevent Alzheimer's. I think you can. We don't know for certain. So to reduce risk, two of the most important things you can do are to keep your blood glucose and keep your insulin within a healthy range. And what's going to do that is following some variation of a lower carb diet. Some people might need ultra strict keto, some don't. Some can have a little more carbohydrate and still do just great. Just taking MCT oil by itself is not going to accomplish that. But I do think if you already notice that you're having cognitive problems, MCT oil might be helpful in addition to a very low carb diet. And some people notice, even if they don't have any particular cognitive problem, maybe they just have like a little bit of brain fog. Some people notice that if they do take MCT oil in their coffee or tea, they do get a little boost. Many people don't, but some do. But that is the long answer to a short question. Let's see. I think Tiffany gave me more information and it went by. Where did it go? Did you delete it? I saw something about 149 pounds, but it disappeared. I don't see it anymore. Oh, there it is. Okay. Tiffany says she's 47. She's 5'6", weighs 149 pounds, no medication, want to lose 5% body fat. Do I think measuring glucose and ketones are helpful? Honestly, in your situation, probably not. In your situation, what you probably need to do is lift weights, do a lot of resistance training, and just stay low carb, because being in like ultra deep ketosis is not going to be what shifts your body composition. What's going to shift your body composition is building some muscle. I think if you have more of a physique goal than a weight goal. So I think if you're not already, you probably need to do some resistance training. And I don't like to say that because I hate resistance training myself, but that kind of is the answer. You can measure glucose and ketones if you want, but that's not the answer to the goal that you have, I don't think. 70-year-old woman lost 120 pounds. Good for you. My gosh. Rick 96. That is amazing. You have been stalled until last month. How much more do you want to lose? You've already lost 120. I don't know what you currently weigh or how much more you still want to lose. Ketovore A1C is 4.6. Blood glucose stays in the hundreds. Is this okay? Okay for what? Do you feel well and you're happy with your life? Yes, it's okay. Okay for what? Here's a better question. Why wouldn't that be okay? Can you think of reasons why that would not be okay? Sounds okay to me. As long as you feel well and you're happy with how things are going for you. Debbie says, do you know why a person would have high vitamin D levels but take no vitamin D supplements? So it depends on what you mean by high. Out of range high, or I think vitamin D is very, very iffy, right? There's a lot of people who take supplements and their blood level doesn't really rise. And then I guess there's people in your situation who don't supplement and you have a relatively high level. So it could be, if you spend a lot of time in the sun, or if you are eating a lot of vitamin D rich foods, or I don't want to get too deep in the weeds here, but it's possible maybe you have there's polymorphisms in the vitamin D receptors on the cells. So there maybe for some reason it's kind of accumulating in your blood rather than, not that none is getting in your cells, but like maybe more of it than usual is sort of accumulating in your bloodstream rather than getting into your cells more easily. That's total speculation. I think as long as you are work with the doctor, because as I hear myself say that, just make sure there's nothing going on. No parathyroid gland problem, no problem with your calcium regulation, that you would want to just make sure there's nothing going on there. But that's really the main thing I can think of, is maybe there's some underlying issue. If there's not an underlying issue, then you might just run high vitamin D. Again, not medical advice, but I am encouraging you to seek medical advice if you have very high vitamin D. Samantha says, a friend has been doing carnivore for a month and is suffering with chronic constipation. What can I recommend? Why is she doing carnivore? Who is she working with? I would recommend that she works with someone who can guide her. That maybe carnivore is not the best thing for her. Carnivore is not the only way to do things. So I would be curious why she's doing carnivore. And also, we want to make sure that, when people say they have constipation, we need to define our terms. Because when you follow a very low carbohydrate, or especially a carnivore diet, it makes sense that you would have fewer bowel movements, right? What do we poop out? Well, we poop out dead bacteria from the colon. That's just a fact of life. And we poop out the remnants of undigested material. What is the stuff that doesn't get digested? Fiber. Most of fiber. So if you're eating basically a zero fiber diet, you're probably going to have fewer bowel movements. So having fewer bowel movements does not mean you have constipation. Constipation is if you try to go and your stools are like hard and dry, like little rocks, and it's painful, and you feel like your bowel doesn't empty completely, like there's still some stuff left up there. That's constipation. If that's what your friend has, that's constipation. If she's just going a lot less often than she's accustomed to, that's not constipation, as long as whenever she does go, her stools are well formed, they're easy to pass, it doesn't require any pain or straining. She could, for some people, they need more salt. Magnesium supplementation can help with constipation, but I would want to know first why she's doing carnivore, Rick, when you started at 350, need to lose 50 pounds more. I think blood glucose is okay. People say it should be lower. Look, if your A1C is 4.6, you don't have any problem with blood sugar, like period, end of story. Let me just look again. Your blood glucose stays in the hundreds. You do a finger stick. Is that just in the morning? If that's only your fasting glucose, but your A1C is 4.6, you can assume that it's much lower than in the hundreds throughout the rest of the day. There's many people who have a slightly higher glucose first thing in the morning, but it's lower throughout the rest of the day. And that is what your A1C is telling you most likely. Pat. Oh, we met at Keto Palooza. Hi, nice to see you again. After a review of what Pat has been doing, suspect my recent stall and weight gain could be due to my fat to protein macros getting out of balance. Yeah, I mean, this whole keto thing really is more of an art than a science, because I do find for most people, not all, most, if you are having difficulty losing fat and you are sort of chasing a high fat macro, and you think you are supposed to load your food up with extra oil and butter and all that in order to reach some kind of percentage of calories from fat in your diet, that can very often be the cause of stopped or very slow fat loss. When I said most but not all, there's always exceptions, like to almost anything. There's always going to be some outliers for whom things work a little differently. I do hear from some people who do better with higher fat and lower protein, not like skimping on protein, but not doing that sort of protein emphasis that's really popular now. So if you have already been doing higher fat, lower protein, and it's not going so well, then maybe start shifting that toward a little less fat. You know, it's so hard to give blanket recommendations because, let's see. Spot says, partially thanks to you. I guess that's me. I lost 132 pounds and ended up at 155. I'm quite proud of myself. Oh, Julia, well, thank you. I'm so glad that anything I have said or done has been helpful for you. 100. We have some, I say this as a compliment, we've got some big losers watching with us today. You lost 132 pounds. This other person lost 120. You guys are killing it. You guys are crushing it. Mary says she can only lose weight when she counts calories, even if she stays at 20 carbs. She's miserable, and after 4 to 5 days, she overeats. 60-year-old with 50 more pounds to lose. Excellent health. So I mentioned, for those of you that tuned in late, I mentioned that my fourth book that I'm currently working on now is about thyroid. Anytime I hear about stubborn fat loss in a woman your age, Mary, I tend to think thyroid, but not everybody has a thyroid problem. So I would need to know more about what you're doing. You should not have to starve yourself to lose body fat. So I would want to know whether or not you have like signs and symptoms of a thyroid issue. And yeah, 20 carbs doesn't tell me what you are eating. So we know you're staying under 20 carbs, but I don't know what your fat and protein are. So if maybe what I just said before, if you're doing higher fat, lower protein, maybe shift that, or, you know, go to Dr. Google and look for the signs and symptoms of low thyroid and see if any of that rings a bell for you. Tina, my friend Tina, says she had to go to higher protein and less fat to trigger weight loss. Yes, some people do. Not everybody, but FJE says, I am a type 2 diabetic taking insulin. I'm 63 and I need to lose 150 pounds. Is there a way to adjust the keto diet for someone who is insulin dependent to lose weight? Yes. You absolutely need to work with your doctor, because keto is going to work phenomenally for you, but you absolutely need to understand how to adjust your insulin, because if you all of a sudden eat hardly any carbohydrate, you cannot take the same dose of insulin that you would take for a big high carbohydrate meal. Your doctor will be able to tell you how to adjust this. I'm going to post a link right here where you can search for a keto-friendly doctor or nurse practitioner or someone else like that in your area. Search for keto-friendly medical professionals here. And I think that's an international listing. If not, there are some international listings that you can look at. But yes, you absolutely can do keto, but you need to make sure that you are able to adjust the insulin correctly, because keto is so powerful for lowering blood sugar that some people need to adjust their insulin on the first day. The first day. Otherwise, you're going to have like a dangerous hypo, and we don't want that. So I don't mean to scare you. I encourage you very much to do keto, but just make sure that you know how to adjust the insulin based on your blood sugar readings. Let's see. Barbara says, I've been keto for 3 years. I'm very lean. Hemoglobin A1C is 5.4. I worry about having fasting insulin or C-peptide too low. Do you think increasing carbs would improve my insulin and C-peptide? So I've heard from some keto doctors recently that they do not like measuring C-peptide. They never really want to measure a C-peptide except in a type 2 diabetic who is using insulin, because they want to see how much of your own insulin you are still producing. So I would forget the C-peptide for now. I don't know if it has been determined yet if there's a fasting insulin that is too low. I think there's many people on keto diets who are low, like almost unmeasurable. I don't think that's a problem. I really don't, but I don't know. We don't really know, I think, what the implications of that are. If you're concerned, eat a little bit more carbohydrate. If you're eating super, super low carb, maybe increase it by 20 or 30 grams, but I don't know that you need to. I would encourage you to find a keto-friendly doctor and ask them if they think it's a problem. I don't think it is, but we don't really know what the long-term implications are of an insulin that's very, very low. I think we sure as heck already know the implications of an insulin that's too high, right? We don't want that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that super low is good. I don't think it's an issue. But Mary says 90 grams of protein, 130 grams of fat. That might be a little too much fat. I mean, that's almost 1,300 calories just from fat. So you could consider, Mary, I'm trying to, I don't know your height. You're 60 years old. You want to lose 50 pounds. You could probably bump the protein up a little, like 110, 120, and maybe decrease the fat a little bit. And you would do that by just choosing leaner proteins, leaner cuts of meat, or not adding quite as much fat. If you're like adding a lot of oil and butter and stuff, you could sort of cut that out. If you're eating meat that's already fatty, I would just enjoy the fat that's on those meats and proteins rather than adding more to it. I would give that a start. But it is so nice to see a woman who eats 90 grams of protein. Now, to me, that's not high. But that's nice because it's higher than so many women typically eat. Maybe not on keto, but even on keto, so many women, especially in a certain age group, really, really skimp on protein. They're living on their rice cakes, they're living on their fat-free yogurt and their granola bars, and they barely eating any protein. It's really nice to see a woman at 90, but I think you could probably bump that up, like I said, 110, 120, and I think you would be fine. Before I forget, let's take a little break here to remind you all, or to tell you if you've never heard before, if you enjoy this kind of Q&A, this kind of opportunity to ask me questions, you can have this every single week and then some. I am on Patreon. I'm going to put a link to it right there in the chat. And if you join Patreon, you can get multiple live calls with me like this, where it's You can ask me questions in real time, and you can watch. If you can't attend live, you can watch the replays. So if you have questions for me, but you know you won't be able to attend live, you can submit them ahead of time and I can answer them and you can watch the replay. You also get, depending on, there's different tiers you could subscribe to. One of the tiers, in addition to all the live question calls, you get early access to my videos. So if you watch my YouTube channel and you enjoy those videos, you can get a little sneak peek, like two days or so before my videos are out for the public. You get to see them in advance. There's some other stuff. I do a monthly little keto happy hour that will be happening this Wednesday, I believe the 19th. So I do a monthly happy hour. Adult beverages welcome, but not required. And yeah, you just get a lot of good stuff. And if you take a step back here, my motto is keto without the crazy. And I think that that is needed more than ever. Everybody is so overwhelmed and so confused and trying to do too many things at once and getting lost, when I think the actual message of keto is very simple and straightforward. And that's what I try to show people and help people see. You don't need to be a millionaire to eat this way. You don't have to have a PhD to understand how and why to eat this way. So if you like that simple, uncomplicated message, consider joining the Patreon. There is no long-term commitment. So you could join for a month or two, see if you like it. If you like it, you can just keep going. If you hate it, which you're not going to, but if you do, you can cancel anytime. And before I get back to the questions, you could join the Patreon for a year for less than the price of one private consultation with me. So if you think you value my opinion or you value my answers to certain questions, the cost of joining my Patreon for a year is less than one private session with me. So back to the questions. Laura says, I've seen some onliners say, if I want to lose weight and keep muscle, I have to eat 1 gram of protein for every pound I weigh. For me, that's 270 grams of protein. That seems a lot. That is a lot. Advice on this is very, very mixed. I'm kind of a fan of what Dr. Ted Naiman does. And he recommends, so listen to this, Laura, and everybody else that has this sort of question. I'm comfortable recommending 1 gram of protein per pound of your desired body weight, not your current weight. So if I'm assuming your current weight then is 270 pounds. If your goal weight, and I kind of don't like people having a goal weight, but let's say your ballpark goal weight is 150 pounds. You would aim for more like 150 grams of protein rather than 270. And even then, even that sort of goal of 150 is a ballpark. It's okay to be less than that some days. It's okay to be more than that some days, although most women are not going to eat more than 150 grams of protein without really forcing it. And to clarify one more thing, when anybody talks about grams of protein, so when I say, for example, 150 grams of protein, that is 150 grams of protein, not 150 grams of a protein food on a food scale. So if you were to take a chicken breast or a pork chop or a piece of lamb or something and put it on a food scale, we are not looking for 150 grams there. That's 150 grams of food by weight. We are looking for 150 grams of protein or 90 grams of protein or whatever it is. The rule of thumb, and it's again just a ballpark, for every ounce, every 1 ounce by weight of a protein food, it's about 7 grams of protein. So like an ounce, so like a 3-ounce chicken breast is approximately 21 grams of protein. But that's very, if you use an app to track food, you will see this. You'll put in like I had a 6-ounce steak and that will tell you the grams of protein. I hope that's not super confusing, but there's a lot of people who don't realize that. So yeah, I would not eat 270 grams of protein, Laura. Joni says, I turned my friend Joan onto keto. She's had great results, but she's worried about her LDL. Can you explain why she shouldn't be? Yeah, I'm not a doctor, but here I'm going to link to a paper that I wrote. Let me see if I can figure out if I can find an easy link to it. Yeah, actually, give me 1 second and I'll be able to bring it up. 2022. What you want to do is send your friend this link there. That is a paper that I co-authored with a cardiologist who is keto friendly. And we talk about all of the fabulous things that low carb and keto diets do for cardiovascular health, even if the LDL goes up. And again, I am not a doctor, but the amount of cholesterol flowing in your bloodstream tells you nothing at all about whether or not you have atherosclerosis, whether or not your arteries are clogged. Nothing. There are people with super, super high LDL cholesterol who have zero calcification of their arteries. There are people with relatively low cholesterol who have massive calcification and coronary artery disease. So I've written some other stuff that is hard to link to because I don't know if it's only posted in like private groups and stuff. Also, if your friend Joan is, I don't know anything about her, but if she's actually in the process of losing weight, it is a known phenomenon that in some people, if not many, when you are actively losing weight, your cholesterol goes up. And then as your weight stabilizes and kind of stays the same for a while, the cholesterol tends to come back down and stays like normal. But it's not, this is a known thing that when you lose weight, sometimes cholesterol goes up. So I wouldn't, again, I'm not a doctor. That's not medical advice, but all I can say is literally the cholesterol flowing in your blood does not tell you anything about, I gotta move this keyboard out of the way, does not tell you anything about whether or not you have any cardiovascular disease. There's so much research being done on this right now, but yeah, if somebody's new to the whole concept, it's kind of hard to know where to send them without totally overwhelming them. Actually, I wrote an article for the company Keto Chow. I'm going to bring that up now and link to it. I wrote an article for them about cholesterol on keto. So I'm going to link to that. My only caveat, and listen, the people at Keto Chow are the kindest, most generous, warmest people that I know of in the keto world. Well, except maybe Dave Feldman, but sorry, I'm trying to look for the post. The only thing that bugs me a little bit is that when I write articles for them, I'm not the one who formats it on the website. I just write the text. And when they put it on the website, they add a lot of images and that's broken up a lot. And I find it a little difficult to read. But that being said, the information is still good. So let me, here is that post. Let's see. Post on keto and cholesterol. So with that little caveat, and here's the thing too, in case Chris or Miriam from Keto Chow are watching, because I know sometimes they do. First of all, I love you guys. You know that. Second of all, I am by no means an SEO expert by any stretch. So if having fancy pictures and breaking up the text into smaller pieces gets more eyeballs on the post, I'm all for it. I just personally, it makes it more difficult for me to read. But that you could link to that article on what if your cholesterol goes up on keto. Let's see, what else do we have? Wait, I think I have like 2 more sips of this coffee left here. Brenda says, help, tried carnivore for 3 months and lost 12 pounds. My lab showed my triglycerides went from 101 to 199 in the past 6 months. Doctor will check again in 3 months. You're back to page 4 this week. I don't know why that would happen. I honestly don't know. You could, maybe it was like a lab error, but could have just happened. I don't know. Yeah, I get check it again in 3 months. And I do think, so there's a lot of different things that we measure that can be acutely high for like reasons that are known, but most of us don't know them. Like sometimes doctors don't even know them, but sometimes they do. For example, I think it's the I don't know if it's some of the liver enzymes, I think, can be elevated if you did a really, really hardcore workout the day before. Like you really tore yourself up. There are certain enzymes that could be elevated that normally it would be a little bit alarming. But if the doctor knows and you know that you did something that explains why it's high, it's like, oh, okay, no problem. We'll check again next time or check again in a week or whatever. That could well be true with triglycerides, and I'm just not aware of what the acute things are that can raise triglycerides. Like there are probably some that I just don't know. I do know in some people, if you had coffee before the test, so you might think you did it fasted, but if you had a cup of coffee that morning before the blood test, that in some people can raise the triglycerides. I don't know that it would raise it that much, but I don't know. That would be my guess. I mean, it could be from carnivore for some reason, but it could also be something else. Stephanie typed, I saw something about pork rinds and cheese, but then it was deleted, so I don't know what it was. All right, any other questions? I'm going to pop that Patreon link back there in the chat so nobody misses it. Remember, that is where you can get calls like this with me every week. And it's not, most of them are not on YouTube. Most of them are a more private group, only a few people, or hopefully more if you decide to join. But yeah, stuff, basically you get interaction with me, you get time with me, you get videos from me, you get stuff with me that is not available to everybody else. All right, let's see. Now we have some more questions. LDL, somebody's saying my LDL is high, but I don't care. My coronary artery calcium, that's CAC, if you see that in the chat, is 0 at age 60. I weigh less than my high school weight and a 30-inch waist, which reduces my risk. Yeah, keep on. Again, I can't give you medical advice, but if you're happy, you're happy. Stephanie, if you are looking for a good source of protein, I would eat animal protein. I mean, pork rinds and cheese are not bad for you, but if you are specifically looking for good, complete sources of protein, I would recommend chicken, fish, beef, eggs, lamb, bison, rabbit, whatever you like. And if it's a budget thing, shop the sales. Chicken leg quarters, thighs still sometimes go on sale $1.99 a pound. You can't beat that for chicken. Beef sometimes $4.99 a pound. You still can buy proteins like that for a reasonable price and stock up when they're on sale. Because here's the thing, Stephanie, pork rinds and cheese, yeah, they have protein, but they are much higher in fat than they are in protein. Or some cheeses are about equal protein and fat. But I think if you're looking specifically for protein, I wouldn't aim to get it from pork rinds and cheese. I would use other proteins. What causes bubbles in urine? I don't know. I would ask your doctor. Yeah, some chicken leg quarters that's normal retail here. Yeah, somebody's saying that's no. Yeah, well, so that used to be normal retail. Everything is a lot higher now. So I guess sometimes they used to go on sale like 97 cents a pound. I mean, it used to be insanely cheap. And I bought a pork, I think it was like a pork shoulder or something the other day. It's in my freezer. Eventually it's going to go in the slow cooker. But if you eat pork, those of you that eat pork, I know not everyone does, buying a larger cut, especially with the bone in, is always going to be cheaper than fancy, like thin cut, boneless, anything. Like those pork shoulders very often get $1.99 a pound, versus, maybe $3.99 a pound or something for pork chops, which still $4 a pound for something that used to be a living being that had to be raised and fed and sheltered and then slaughtered and processed and trucked to the store. Like all this stuff had to happen to get that package to the store. $4 a pound is still insanely, reasonable for all of the people that had to get paid along the way to bring that to your store. So, but those larger pieces, and buying a whole chickens, so again, 99 cents a pound, sometimes on sale, $1.29 a pound, going to be cheaper than pieces that are already cut up. Now you have to know how to cook it, but that stuff is usually like set it and forget it type stuff. If you have a slow cooker or a pressure cooker, Instant Pot is the brand name, but like a pressure cooker, or in your oven, if you have a large pot, a large heavy bottomed like Dutch oven type pot, and you just put it in the oven to kind of braise away for hours and hours cooking this stuff. A whole roast chicken just right in the oven. Yeah. So I think even, even even though there are some difficult financial times, I still think you can eat fairly well. You don't have to be eating ribeye steaks every day. That would be nice, but not all of us can afford that. All right. Somebody ask some more questions. I don't really see any more questions coming in. Dr. Berry has talked about bubble pee. Okay, good. Go to Ken Berry's YouTube channel. Would you drink filtered or unfiltered coffee? I drink, most of the time, I just drink regular drip coffee from a little coffee maker that has a filter. Once in a while, I get fancy and I use my French press, which is unfiltered. I don't really care. I think you should drink what you like. I think, again, supposedly the unfiltered coffee, I think if you are somebody that has that triglyceride thing with coffee, I think the unfiltered does it more, but I might be like making that up. I feel like I heard that once a while ago. I think you should drink whatever you prefer. John McCormick, where and how is a good place to start keto? I might be a little biased. I think the best place to start keto is the book that I co-wrote called End Your Carb Confusion. This book is written in plain English. You do not need a dictionary or a PhD to understand it. It is very straightforward. We give you a food list. We tell you exactly what to eat, exactly what not to eat, and why and how. We've got tips in here for dining out, how you can follow this eating at restaurants, how you can follow it if you're on the road and you're running into like a gas station convenience store. What can I buy that's keto friendly? Yeah, this is what I would recommend. I also would recommend the Keto Made Simple online course from Adapt Your Life Academy. However, and here's the Keto Made Simple online course. We are not running that again until January. So why wait? It's only October now. Somebody could read this book and already lose 20 pounds come January, depending on where they're starting from. So don't wait. Get on the wait list for that course. And if you click on that link, you can just sign up for the wait list. It's free to get on the wait list, but why not get started 2 months ahead of time? Like, don't wait. I find it hard to reach 1,200 milligrams of calcium per day. You don't really have to. All of those, a lot of those sort of recommendations are best guesses. You're not going to have osteoporosis if you go 2 days without eating any dairy. Do you know what I mean? Like those RDAs, DRIs, whatever, they have a million different abbreviations and acronyms now. You please don't lose sleep over that. Please don't be worried that like, oh my God, my app says I didn't get enough boron today, or like, oh, I'm short on chromium. These things are best guesses. And so I just don't think, now, if you have osteoporosis, you might want to pay more attention to calcium, but you also want to be getting enough protein because your bones are mostly protein. It's calcium and magnesium and other minerals wrapped around proteins. So sorry, that I think that's like a bad gesture. I'm indicating like minerals wrapped around protein, nothing else. I wouldn't stress out a whole ton about falling short of that sometimes. Does coffee have carbs? If you are drinking black coffee, if it has carbs, I would consider them negligible. I would not worry about the carbs in black coffee. If you're adding cream and sugar and a ton of stuff to it, count those carbs. You know, but coffee, I don't worry about that. Like we call those carblets in Adapt Your Life Academy, carblets, like little teeny tiny fractions of a gram of carb that you do not have to worry about. Love your book. Thank you. Thanks for the compliments on the books. Yeah, I knew you meant milligrams. I said 1,500 milligrams. Yeah, I didn't say grams. Concerned about oxalate. Oxalate question. So no, not everybody needs to be concerned about oxalate. Oxalates are compounds found in certain vegetables that bind to minerals that make it harder for your body to absorb those minerals. And if you massively, massively overdo these oxalate foods, oxalate crystals can build up in your body. They can cause kidney stones, they can cause joint pain, they can cause just a lot of weird, unexplained stuff. This was a really big deal in the keto world a while back. It like oxalate was on everybody's radar. You can search the Googles for high oxalate foods, but the ones off the top of my head are spinach, Swiss chard, I think beet greens, maybe beets also, but beet greens. I think cocoa powder, blueberries, almonds. So there are some keto foods, you know, very low carb foods that are high in oxalate. I do not think they're a problem for most people. That doesn't mean that nobody has a problem with them. If you are not, so I think the people that run into problems with this stuff tend to be vegans and vegetarians or former vegans and vegetarians who were mainlining this stuff, like drinking a spinach smoothie every day of the week for months at a time, or like having a giant spinach salad every day for lunch, drinking, 3 cups of almond milk a day, having almond milk in their spinach smoothie kind of thing. If you are on an omnivorous diet, you eat mixed animals, plants, a variety of different kinds of foods, for most people, oxalate should not be a problem. If you're concerned about it, then cut back on the high oxalate foods. But I don't think for most people it's a problem when you're eating this stuff in reasonable quantities, Yeah, if you just eat spinach now and then, I don't think you need to worry. Eva or Iva says, I love keto. It has helped me lose a lot of weight, 48 pounds so far. Go you. Another big loser. I say that with love. Kept my energy, satiety high. It hasn't helped much with my hirsutism and HS. So I'm guessing that's the hidradenitis suppurativa. Do I need to lose all the weight to see? I would imagine you would already see some improvement, but it's possible that there's something else going on causing these things. The hirsutism, for all of you, that's hair growth. So Eva obviously is a female, I'm assuming, and when a female has this hirsutism, it tends to be like facial hair, darker than normal hair on the arms, like more of a male hair pattern on like just body hair growth. And so we see this a lot with PCOS, right? So I would think that would start to normalize, but maybe not. There are some women who are just hairier than other women. You know, like there was a woman I was following who said something like, I thought I had PCOS, I thought I had hirsutism. Oh, turns out I'm just Italian. So it's possible that you just have a little more hair than some other women, but the hidradenitis, it's possible you just need to keep going. Like that is very possible, but it's possible also maybe you are eating something that you're sensitive to. You know, you might be reacting to something. And I always kind of hesitate to say that because it's such a broad, like, well, where do you start? What would you cut out? I don't know. But that would be my guess. Like potentially your body is reacting to something that you're eating that is not agreeing with you, but I don't know. Debbie, got in trouble with kidney stones drinking too much black tea. I've been told cooked spinach is okay. Yeah, I don't think cooking spinach, I don't think gets rid of the oxalate, but if I think raw spinach is fine too, just not in mass. Again, these, 14-ounce spinach smoothie every day for breakfast for 6 months, or like spinach salad to the tune of like a whole bag of that raw spinach every day for 6 months. Like that's the issue. I think cooked spinach every now and then as a side dish should not be a problem. And the kidney stones with the black tea, I wonder, I'd have to check if black tea is high in oxalate. I know it's very tannic. It's very high in tannins. That stuff that like really dries out your mouth. Same thing as walnuts, red wine, like that drying feeling, that's really big in black tea. It might also be high in oxalate. I don't know off the top of my head. Yes, Stephanie, if you only eat a little bit of spinach, I give you permission to forget about oxalates. Unless you know that you have an oxalate problem. Mary C. just got a copy of the book. I hope happy reading, Mary. I hope you like it. I might be biased because I was one of the authors, but I really just think this is a great place to start keto. I just think we could not have picked a better title. End your carb confusion. We could have called it End Your Keto Confusion. I don't know. Can flax seeds be a problem for men? Again, probably not when consumed in reasonable amounts. So if you're not having a whole loaf of flaxseed bread every day, if you're having a sprinkle of flax on your salad, on your yogurt or whatever, or an occasional flax muffin, I don't think that should be a problem at all. Eva says, is there any truth to the often repeated fact, I'll put fact in quotes, that burning fat can release a lot of hormones stored in your fat, so that can cause problems? I honestly don't know. My answer is going to be, I don't know. This is something I've heard. It kind of makes sense, but just because something makes sense doesn't make it true, right? It is supposedly we do store toxins in our fat cells. So if you are releasing a lot of stored fat, like if you start keto and like you lose a lot of weight very rapidly, I could see that if you are releasing things into the bloodstream that will eventually get cleared, you could feel worse before you feel better. Like I could see that possibility. I don't know that it happens for everybody. And if it does, it's not something I would expect to go on forever. Like I would think that's something that you would get past relatively quickly, even if you're still losing body fat. I just don't know how, I don't know how big a problem that is, because it's just not something we hear a whole lot about, right? For the most part, we hear great things on keto. Again, maybe after those first 2-3 days when you're over that keto flu, you're over the headaches and the dizziness, and then it's like the world opens up in a good way, right? The weight is coming off, you're more energetic, you're sharp, the brain fog is gone. We don't really hear a lot of people a week or two into keto like, I feel terrible, I'm still like tired, I feel like there's a fog in front of me. We just don't hear a lot of that. So I'm not saying it never happens, but I think that's overblown. And I think that even if it's something that happens, that's a dumb reason not to do a keto diet. Because you know what happens when you stop smoking? You feel like shite for a few days. You will be. When I was in basic training a million years ago, I don't know what the rules are like now, but you were not allowed to smoke in basic training. I was not a smoker, but there were some people in my flight for the Air Force who were smokers. And guess what? They quit cold turkey because they didn't have a choice. You cannot smoke in basic training. So they're trying to run, they're trying to do the workout, they're coughing up black stuff, they're choking on their own phlegm. Does that mean they should have just kept smoking? They shouldn't have quit smoking? No. If it gets worse before it gets better, you just have to know it's going to get worse before it gets better, but it's going to get better. So again, I think if that is a possibility, it's a not a good reason to not do keto. Any advice for someone who gets kidney stones? I read drinking 2 liters of water a day, and it's almost impossible to get stones with consumption of that amount of water. So I'm not a doctor, and sorry if my window open, there's a dog barking outside. I can't give medical advice. I do think it is very important to stay hydrated. You could put fresh lemon or lime juice in your water for the citric acid. Supposedly helps to reduce the formation of stones. You could supplement with like magnesium citrate or potassium citrate. The citric acid, I think, is what helps with the stones. But that's certain things. And there may be, if you are prone to stones, you might want to err on, better safe than sorry, err on the side of caution of lower oxalate foods. And not all, yeah. But that's not medical advice. Will keto help with skin issues such as eczema? It usually does. I can never guarantee anything, but it usually does. And I'm going to link here to a blog post that I wrote about all of the skin issues that come from chronically high insulin. So insulin and skin. It's a very, very long article, but you can learn about skin tags. Somebody earlier mentioned hidradenitis suppurativa. I also talk about acne, acanthosis nigricans, which is like a black or gray tint to the folds of skin. So like if you're heavier and you have like folds in your neck or your elbows, sometimes the knuckles, the back of the knees, if these places on your body are a little gray or ashy looking, that's a sign that you have chronically high insulin. So for the most part, keto should help eczema, but there's always people who it doesn't really help. All right, it's been an hour. Let me close out. Let me see if I have any other questions. My Alexa says black tea is rich with oxalates. Well, there you go. Yeah, Stephanie says my eczema and adult acne completely cleared and my skin tags went away. Yeah, this works. It really works. I mean, I like to think I have nice skin. I have no filter here. I just have a desk lamp. I do have some foundation on, but that's it. But I've always had like out of all the problems I've ever had, bad skin isn't one of them so far. All right. Oh, thanks, Roxana. I'm gonna, Kevin, one last question. Any thoughts on lymphedema and keto? Yes, let me just reach for the book that you need to read. The Ketogenic Solution for Lymphatic Disorders by my personal friend, Leslyn Keith. I think she has a new book out. That's an older book. Let me see if I can find the new one. Leslyn Keith, lymphedema. Yes, this is her website. Oh, the lymphatic code. Just go to this website. Leslyn Keith is an expert in lymphedema and lipedema and keto. So keto helps. It's not going to cure it. It's not going to fix it, especially if somebody has lymphedema because of, let's say, like a mastectomy or some other surgery where you've had lymph nodes removed. You're probably going to still have lymphedema, but keto can maybe help a little bit with like the swelling and the edema and all that. But yeah, no, this it's basically just keto, but real keto, not this kind of crazy, newfangled, like actual sort of clinical keto. No messing around keto. All right. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to put that Patreon link one more time. If you have friends, family, acquaintances who need help with keto, tell them to join the Patreon. Like, it is cheaper. You could have me for a year on Patreon for less than the price of one individual consultation. So like, why wouldn't you do it, right? I'm just saying. What else? I think that's it. Robin, ask that. That's a question for a carnivore group. The phenomenon of why blood glucose rises and ketones drop, probably because of the protein. If you eat more protein, I would expect your ketones to be a little lower. The blood sugar may or may not rise. The question is whether or not that's automatically a bad thing. Because are we talking blood sugar of 98 or are we talking 142? So having slightly higher blood sugar and lower ketones is not automatically a bad thing. That's what you really need to determine. What is your body doing and why? My guess would be because you're eating more protein. And so it's not necessarily a negative, depending on what you are trying to accomplish. All right. Thanks, everybody. I'm so glad that I figured out how to set this up correctly this time. So the link I posted actually worked. And go enjoy the rest of your Sunday or your Monday if you're over on the other side of the globe. Bye, everybody.